Before Alex Jones was kicked off YouTube and other platforms, he had quite a large audience, and it was December 2nd, 2015, where he caught my attention and probably had one of those break the internet events. Trump appeared as a guest on his program that day, and the large InfoWars audience then knew Alex was all in on Trump. The interview was favorable for Trump, and Trump had told Alex he would not let him down.
I routinely talk to the top generals, special forces, Pentagon currently, out of the Pentagon, CIA, as I know you do, and we'll just leave it at that. There are a lot of people in this government and also retired who don't want to destroy the country. They really know that we've reached the crossroads where the country's done as a third world nation within a few more years. Forget Donald Trump in 4 years. If this happens, we're done. I mean, we're talking about resurrecting the dead here. We could turn it around right now, as you've said properly. You're dead on, sir. You're right. We could turn it around. All the actuaries, all the numbers show it. But it's got to happen the next few years or we're done. And there are globalists that want to have a world government, a system run by select crony capitalists, using socialism at the grassroots to make people dependent. And I've talked to not just high-level folks that have been in government that are on your team, but separately high-level people in government currently that say there's an internal war going on and that you're a manifestation of that. I don't want to get anything inside baseball with you, but I already know the inside baseball. I know now from top people that you actually are for real and you understand you're in danger and you understand what you're doing is epic. It's George Washington level, and you understand that office. So I want to tell you right now, can you speak about the war for the soul of this country that's happening right now and really tell people what's happening and commit to people that you won't Ross Perot under death threats and step down when you're in the lead 2 months from the election?
I just want to finish by saying your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot, but you'll be looking at me in a year or 2 years. Let's give me a little bit of a time to run things. But a year into office, you'll be saying, wow, I remember that interview. He said he was going to do it, and he did a great job. You'll be very proud of our country.
Well, I'm impressed. I mean,
it wasn't until recently that I asked myself, how did Trump end up on InfoWars? Who were the people that put that meeting together and determined it was worth the risk for Trump to gain the InfoWars audience as voters versus the fallout from the mainstream media saying Trump was associating with a conspiracy theorist? This question led me to a video broadcast where Alex Jones let his audience know the military was helping him from very early on in his career.
Different groups. I've had all these, Navy SEALs and Delta Force guys on. They don't tell you who they are when they're on the show, but they go, no, I was like in covert operations in Southeast Asia, or I was in, Europe, or I was here or there. And, I had the local CIA head guy come by and go, listen, InfoWars.com, this guy knows what's going on, decompartmentalization, this is really what's going on. And it wasn't that I was even that great of a guy. I was just willing to talk about it. And they kind of made it a joke early on, so it got out big. And I also think there was some psyops by patriots inside. We didn't have a very big audience. I was on a few radio stations here in Texas and things like 1996, 97. I made some films. And then they ordered the Marine Corps wide, and then the Army not to watch Alex Jones videos. Well, suddenly I was going from like 50 orders a day to 500 a day, and it was all going to Marine Corps bases and Army bases.
The U.S. Marines and Army were sending Alex Jones documentaries to their bases for viewing in the late 90s and 2000s. Knowing this, it shouldn't be surprising to learn the answer to the previous question. How did Donald Trump end up on InfoWars? Alex provided us the answer, saying it was the United States Special Operations Command out of Florida.
I know folks that are part of Delta Force, and I know people that are part of covert action in the Defense Department and the CIA. And quite frankly, they've given me authorization to talk about this. I have never been in the CIA. I have never been part of covert operations, but I was basically contacted by groups inside the Special Forces operations in Florida, inside breakaway groups inside the Central Intelligence Agency, and groups basically behind American industry that wanted to defeat the globalists. They're planning to bankrupt America.
But this is what got Donald Trump to say, I got to be on this guy's show?
Donald Trump was advised by the Special Forces Command out of Florida. They said
to go on your program.
I mean, that's who actually. I mean, let's just say it, the enemy already knows all this. Let me just say, so everybody listening knows I'm telling the truth. Special Operations Command in Florida, the Delta Force, Army, Black Ops. Army's the oldest thing in America. It's before the Constitution, anything. they said, sir, you need to go with Alex Jones, and you need to rally the troops. And they briefed him. They showed him the documents, and they said, we need you to run. And the Delta Force basically asked Trump. Delta Force, founded by General Boykin and Schumacher and people like Dr. C. Pachenik of Psychological Operations for the CIA.
That's exactly what all our sources from the FBI and the Pentagon, which means the CIA connected Pentagon, that's Special Operations, that's what they told us. And these are the good guys that continue to give us good info. It doesn't mean the whole thing's good.
Two names stick out that Jones mentioned: Lieutenant General William G. Boykin and Dr. Steve Pachenik. This wasn't the first time Boykin was mentioned by Alex Jones. During an interview years ago with his associate Michael Maloof, former senior security policy analyst in the Office of the Secretary of Defense, Maloof mentions Boykin as a source. A brief note on Maloof: he attends the New Horizon conference in Iran with Alexander Dugin. The Department of Justice has identified New Horizon as an Iranian intelligence recruiting event. I mention this because it raises questions about Maloof and Boykin, such as why would Boykin associate with someone like Maloof, and why would Maloof associate with Alexander Dugin, a Putin ally?
More. Now, there are, as Congressman West mentioned to me, there are some zipper issues that have occurred even among the higher ranks. But as General Boykin told me, this is unprecedented to have so many flag officers, so many four-star generals removed in such a short period of time.
Maloof, he has talked to all these major generals, you name it, brigadier generals, the list goes on, who've confirmed what our Navy SEAL sources have said on record and off record, what our military police sources have said, what Fort Hood PSYOPs has told us that we've confirmed. They've given us good intel over and over again. These are good men. I've met them.
Boykin was commander of Delta Force, 1st Special Forces Command Airborne, which includes the Force Psychological Operations Group, the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School, which trains SOCOM officers, and he finished his career as Undersecretary for Defense Intelligence 2003 to 2007. Boykin is on the Executive Committee for the Council of National Policy, and two of Alex's other associates, Steve Bannon and Jerome Corsi, are also members of CMP. Boykin was also featured in a documentary with Jones, and it is likely they have communicated with each other given how Alex and Pachenik talk about Boykin. Boykin publicly endorsed Trump for his 2016 and 2020 campaigns. Given that Alex Jones and his associates have mentioned Boykin multiple times and the ties InfoWars has to the military, we cannot ignore when Jones has mentioned that InfoWars is the tip of the spear, or that it is in an information war against the globalists. SOCOM, Delta Force, and 1st Special Forces Command symbols are spear and arrowheads. In 21st century warfare, information operations and its subset psychological operations are largely deployed before kinetic action is. This is why InfoWars is the tip of the spear, and Jones does not hide he is at war with the globalist, which is the Anglo-American establishment, according to him in a 2008 RT interview.
InfoWars is the tip of the spear. Supporting our information warfare operation against the globalists. Because we're warning people about very serious things that are happening in the world. We have the Anglo-American establishment based in England and the United States that has enslaved our people. And they are using our wealth, our military, our name to carry out this globalist empire, this unipolar world, instead of having a multipolar world.
The picture is starting to emerge that InfoWars is the information operations tip of the spear for a faction inside and outside our government, represented by elements of special forces and the intelligence community, who are looking to break up the Anglo-American establishment, or what Alex more often calls them, the globalists. Just in case there is any doubt as to whether Alex misspoke about factions of the military helping him and Trump, here he is again, mentioning how Trump came to power.
Trump was saying, who do we get to do this? So there's a real war going on in the elite right now. Don't think Trump just did this on his own. He was recruited by patriots and U.S. intelligence agencies, for a fact. Trump was recruited by the U.S. Army. That's a big secret, but you deserve to know what the Democrats already know.
Trump was recruited by SOCOM, according to Jones, and the military has been working with Jones since the late 90s. Alex has family members in the CIA, and he employs retired military and special forces members, such as Russian-born Daria Karpova, whom he hired for Russian translation services. We can now see that InfoWars is deeply tied into the intelligence community and power structures in the United States that placed Trump in office. That was accomplished with information warfare, partly conducted by Alex's InfoWars operation, staffed by retired military and special forces personnel.
My family doing things like helping take in East German defectors, okay? Whenever I go to a family reunion, half the people in the room are former retired CIA.
We've got a lot of folks work here at the office that were in the military, and some of them were, involved in not just your standard special operations stuff, but some of the most elite groups out there. But Daria is one of the only people ever, not just in your regular special forces, but all the way at the top of it. And she's a great patriot, and she's a Russian-American whose parents came here to leave communism, and she's a great patriot.
Obey me.
That's right. I get all my orders from the Russian right here.
Going back to Special Forces Commander Lieutenant General Boykin, it wasn't just Alex and Maloof talking about him. Dr. Steve Pachenik mentioned him as well, saying he was involved in the revolution that placed Trump in power. Pachenik is another associate of Jones that has Russian ties. Pachenik was born in communist Cuba, speaks Russian and English because his mother was Russian. He was a member of the highly influential Council on Foreign Relations going back to the mid-90s, and was previously with the U.S. State Department as Deputy Assistant Secretary under Henry Kissinger, as well as having served as a consultant to the RAND Corporation and the United States Institute for Peace.
Who indicted the CIA by saying they were a legacy of ashes and they were a disaster. This is the first president in the 21st century to say, I will not allow any form of corruption to exist in our voting system. Simple as that. And I will remain in power. He utilized all the men and women in our intelligence community in the White House, General Nakasone, General Keith Alexander, Boykin, Special Forces. I mean, these are names that I've told you about before, but they're quiet. These are the real heroes. And unfortunately, as Adam Curry said in one of his shows, he said they're not going to televise the revolution. And that comes from an old song in 1971, as you know.
Jones, Maloof, and Pachenik have all mentioned Lieutenant General Boykin. We know Jones wants to destroy the Anglo-American establishment. We know Maloof attends Iranian intelligence recruiting events with such titles as The Demise of America, while associating with Putin allies. And we know Pachenik is no aficionado of the Constitution and supports devolution, as we shall now see.
Let me be very frank. I have never been an aficionado of the Constitution. The reason for it, it's outdated. And what's happening now is we're coming into a new realism, a hyper-realism, where the states become more important. The devolution of power from the federal government, I told you, is happening very quickly.
Pachenik mentioned Boykin in the context of the revolution not being televised, and certain people preferring to keep quiet. However, Boykin is not a ghost, and we can form a picture of who he is via his associations, which we will examine presently. Would you be surprised to know that Boykin is a close associate with a Greek national named Nicholas Papanikolaou, who in turn is a close associate of former KGB General Vladimir Yakunin? Both Boykin and Papanikolaou are members of the Knights Hospitallers of the Sovereign Order of St. John of Jerusalem Knights of Malta. They are also members of the Oak Initiative, whose founder is Rick Joyner. Rick is a fellow Knight Hospitaller, and the Knights organization traces its history back to Russia. Papanikolaou and former KGB General Yakunin co-founded the World Public Forum Dialogue of Civilizations, or WPF-DOC for short. Yakunin was interviewed in person by the Council on Foreign Relations, which was a partner to the WPF-DOC, and they called Yakunin a close associate of Putin.
Officially on the record. Today our speaker is Vladimir Yakunin. For those who aren't familiar with him, he is the president of the state-run company Russian Railways. So he really is the guy who makes the trains run on time.
Unlike the traffic here.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry we can't do something about our airline system here, so you'd be... But He is a former first secretary of the Soviet Permanent Rep Office to the United Nations. He's a former deputy minister of transportation. He's a close associate of Prime Minister Vladimir Putin's and considered to be one of Russia's really true insiders.
Yakunin was also interviewed by Tiberio Graziani's Italian Journal of Geopolitics, where he stated the time for mere dialogue was over, and it was time for exerting controlled influence over social processes. We can assume that influence would be in support of a Eurasian empire, which is something Yakunin advocates. Graziani is on the High Council of Alexander Dugin's International Eurasia Movement, which calls for a multipolar world order, just like Alex Jones was advocating for in RT in 2008, and for the integration of post-Soviet spaces into the Eurasian Union. What is particularly interesting about Boykin's association with Papanicolaou is that both men were in Rhodes, Greece during October 2, 2011 for a Knights Hospitaller ceremony. Just 4 days later, also in Rhodes, Papanicolaou was meeting with Yakunin at the WPF DOC event. This raises some questions such as, was Boykin in contact with retired KGB General Yakunin? Was Alexander Dugin there as well? Dugin regularly travels to Rhodes. Yakunin is an important figure not only because of his railway business, he also used to be a diplomat to the UN, which might explain why UNESCO is a partner to the WPF DOC, that is because of Yakunin's connections to the UN. Yakunin is also editor and publisher of 2 Dugin anthologies and was meeting with Dugin going back to at least 2004. That group is organized by Putin-endorsed Center for National Glory of Russia, a partner organization to the WPF DOC, where Yakunin serves as chairman of the board of trustees. Yakunin regularly met with Putin, and probably still does, when he was a Russian railway boss. He is also associated with Putin through the Ozera Dhaka Cooperative. Another Boykin, Papanicolaou, and Joyner associate is Ted Baer, who is also a member of the Knights organization and was working with Yakunin's wife at events such as the World Congress of Families and World Public Forum, which are sponsored by people like Yakunin and Putin and Dugin associate Alexander Malafiev. I believe we now have a decent picture of Boykin via his associates, and we can understand somewhat why his name is being mentioned by Jones, Malouf, and Pachenik, all individuals looking to break the current establishment. They said the military put Trump into power and mentioned Boykin. Jones would later advocate using the military to keep Trump in power.
Organizing violence and moving, and I can see they're moving with it behind the scenes. It's time for covert action, and it just has to happen. So if people kind of see InfoWars as a bellwether where the people sit, I'm just saying I think the president and the military has to do what it has to do at this point. I mean, it would be negligent to sit here at this point.
Concluding part 1, we learned that United States Special Operations Command put Trump into contact with Alex Jones. We also learned InfoWars is likely the tip of the spear for factions of the military and intelligence community, and that Lieutenant General Boykin was mentioned by Jones and his associates who are questionable in terms of their loyalty to this country. And Boykin, while he might be silent, is associated with individuals close to a KGB general. Lastly, it wasn't only Jones that advocated using the military in support of Trump. Someone much closer to Lieutenant General Boykin was suggesting using the military to take over the United States before Trump even came to power.
So I think these are unfolding. And what I saw when I saw martial law come into America was military law. I saw it being an answer. And I believe right now, if we're going to go that way, if our present leaders are not going to hear, not going to defend our country, not defend our borders, and open the door to the kind of terrible things I saw, then, you know, martial law is going to seem like a reprieve. And the real key is who the marshal is. We need to start praying now, if this is going to happen, that the Lord have the right marshal with wisdom, with a love for freedom. You know, I would hope an absolute commitment to our Constitution. And you say, well, how could anyone who takes over the country under martial law have a love for our Constitution? In extreme crisis, sometimes you have to do extreme things. That doesn't mean they can't move us back towards that. Bring order, bring control, bring the defense that we need in our country and the protection of our citizens that are needed. and then bring us back to the republic and restore the republic that we're called to be. That's my prayer. I believe that can happen. I believe all of the things we've done to undermine our Constitution can be corrected and changed. So, but I'm praying right now, whoever the marshal is, please give him great wisdom, resolve, courage, everything else needed for these times. And as I started telling friends for a long time, that no election's going to get the right person in there that can restore us, because the system is so broken, so undermined right now, the whole system. I believe our only hope is a military takeover, martial law, and that the most crucial element of that is who the marshal is going to be.